Clayco Till I Die podcast, episode number 2, keeping it Clayco. I have, man, I don't even know how to describe him. Famous, infamous, legendary, controversial, former Clayton County Sheriff Victor Hill on the podcast today. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and talk to me. And I just want to put this in perspective because people may not know.
Sure.
When is the last time you sat down with anyone and did an interview or a podcast or any type of media like this?
About a week ago, believe it or not. Ever since I started campaigning.
Okay.
I started going out and getting my message out. And of course, I like podcasts. I don't like local media.
Sure.
Because all they do is they cut and clip and twist. But in a situation like this, you get to tell the whole point and people can hear your whole thoughts instead of getting manipulated.
Right. Now, before you decided to announce your candidacy and run, I read your book.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do any interviews or media during your sheriff.
I haven't spoken to the media in over, well, actually, if it depends on how you want to look at it. I still haven't spoken to the media in over a decade. If you're talking about, the local clowns like Tom and Mark and them, it's been probably 12, 13 years. But podcasts and like this, I've done those. So I haven't done that yet,
Yeah. So I'm just going to jump into it.
Sure.
Your first term as sheriff.
Yes.
Became pretty widely known, and my audience may or may not know what happened. I was still fairly young at the time, not into politics, not in my legal career.
You trying to call me old man? What you doing? What you saying?
Your experience.
Right. Okay.
You were elected at a young age.
Right.
At a young age.
Right.
So talk to me about snipers on the roof, because many people don't understand tell me what happened in our neighboring county of DeKalb that kind of influenced your decision to put snipers on the roof.
Sure. So I knew I was going to run for sheriff during that particular election period. And so 4 years prior, I already knew what the plan was 4 years from then. So, of course, I was watching other sheriff's races and stuff like that. DeKalb was kind of interesting to watch because it was a police captain running. And some of the things he was saying were things that I always thought that the sheriff's office should do. Ones in metro counties that are so-called not full service. Mm-hmm. So I was watching it closely anyway. Well, for those who weren't around during that time, after he won that election, he was assassinated in his front yard, actually the day he graduated from sheriff's school. And interestingly, before he was assassinated, he had sent out, I believe, 37 notices to different employees saying, your services won't no longer be needed. And actually with good intentions, he was actually giving them a chance to try and find something else before he came in, because it was about approximately 2 months out before then. Well, anyway, I don't think it was any surprise, at least not to me, because I spent a decade in homicide, that the trigger man was one of the folks in that list.
So the person who killed him, he thought, hey, I'm going to do these people a solid. I'm going to let them have plenty of notice. When I come in, you're going to need to find other employment so they can make affairs, and it end up backfiring. On him. So what he did, probably as a gentleman move, ended up ultimately costing his life. And it was actually a sheriff's deputy that took his life because they felt that what they had was being threatened. So, when we got to think about it, gun violence on the job is nothing new. You remember the saying going postal, right? So these are jobs where people are not known to bring guns to work. Well, when you're the sheriff, everyone you fire has a gun. And I don't think people realize that. Yeah. And some of them have rifles and semi or automatic weapons because they're on the SWAT team, which was among the group that I no longer wanted with the sheriff's office. And, it's not uncommon for you never see any politician keep the same cabinet their predecessor had. Right.
I mean,
you want your people in place.
You want your people in place, right?
Right.
And of course, I wanted to do something very, very, very special. I wanted to take the sheriff's office and transform it. It wasn't really taken seriously. It was considered a place where, people retire, just sit around the courthouse and nothing really happens. Well, Brian Nichols, of course, proved that wrong. That right. you need people who know what they're doing. I don't know if people really think about it, but at the sheriff's office, they actually had a lower qualification threshold. If you shot 70%, you were fine. PD was 80%. I think both was ridiculous. I think all cops should shoot 90% or better. And if you're on a SWAT team, I think you should be shooting in the high 90s. Well, especially in a courtroom, because think about it. If you have a situation like Nichols, where he took a deputy's gun or something happens, you're talking about close quarter shooting where people are around, or someone may take a hostage, and can you really take that shot? And most cops can't.
Right.
Well, I want to transform the sheriff's office into a real crime fighting machine. And of course, the people who were there, that wasn't going to happen. So just like the NFL recruits, they're looking for the strongest, the fastest, they're not, they're trying to win the Super Bowl. Well, I was trying to win the Super Bowl of fighting crime.
Sure.
Right. And it wasn't going to happen with that particular team. But eventually I did get the team, and we did win that Super Bowl year after year until the politics got involved,
Sure.
Yeah.
So the talk about, you're in this situation where you just won. What's going through your mind given what happened in DeKalb?
The only thing going through my mind in DeKalb is obviously we don't need to give notice of who we want to replace. And B, we're talking about firing 27 armed people. So it needed to be done where it could safely be done. Some of them had access to cars. Some of the cars had automatic weapons. So we had sharpshooters up there watching just in case anybody returned. Contrary to popular belief, there was nobody laying down looking through a scope with crosshairs. That never happened. And if it did, we would have got the picture because the media was there and they saw them up there. So, the media has a way, and of course your political enemies have a way of exaggerating situations to make it something that it's not. And then that's where you get your urban legend from.
Gotcha. Now, you said something a few minutes ago that you wanted to create something special. When I was reading the book, it was interesting to me that explained that how in Georgia, not every county has a police department.
Absolutely.
So talk about that.
So Georgia has 159 counties. When I became sheriff, only 13 had a county police. A lot of people don't realize that the county police are something created by commissioners, usually when they get mad at the sheriff or they want to have some type of law enforcement authority. Before the county police even existed, there was a sheriff. Before the marshals, before the FBI, before whatever, the sheriff is the original law enforcement agency in this country. The settlers came over. They brought common law over. The sheriffs were like the sheriff of Nottingham. Believe it or not, there was a sheriff of Nottingham. I don't know if there was a Robin Hood, but there was a sheriff of Nottingham, right? And so that came, and then somebody had a great idea. Somebody said, one of the forefathers, I read this one day and it blew my mind. I wish I would have screenshot it. But he said that the sheriff has to be elected to keep him from the molestations of other politicians. Mm-hmm. Just about everywhere in the world you go, not sheriffs, but the head of police is appointed by a politician. Mm-hmm. But only in America do people get to pick who the chief law enforcer is. And that's very, very important for them to have that choice because, mayors pick police chiefs for whatever reason. And then they usually, unfortunately, become puppets and they can't really do what they need to do. Well, the sheriff, my boss is the voters. So what's more important to me than a call from a sitting chairman or anybody else? When that little old lady calls and says there's a drug house, I need to get up and run because guess what? That's my boss. She's the one that put me there. She voted for me. So that's why it gave you a whole lot of leeway to really help people because it doesn't matter whether they're in the unincorporated or incorporated. They could be in your city, Forest Park, inside the city. But these people vote for the sheriff too. Mm-hmm. So if they call me and say, hey, there's a drug house, the police department hasn't moved it, well, I'm coming. And I don't need, of course, I have a good relationship with them. I'm going to let them know. But I don't need them to say it's okay. I can just take care of it because my boss is called,
So two things, and you can address them either way you want to.
Sure.
The first one is, talk about when you came in, what was the state of the sheriff's department as it related to preventing crime versus just, as you call it, just kind of like, I'm paraphrasing your words,
sure,
but like babysitting the jail.
Right.
And well, actually just talk about that.
Right. Well, there was no, the sheriff, prior sheriffs before me took the attitude that, hey, we don't do law enforcement. That's something the police do. And it's so interesting that they would do that because if we want to talk about constitutional violations, that's probably the biggest one there is. In the state constitution, the sheriff is the only one where it says that the sheriff has a duty to protect. It doesn't even say that about the police. So the sheriff has a duty to protect. So any sheriff that sits by and says, well, we don't do that, that's something the police do, they're actually violating the Constitution, because that's what the sheriff is supposed to do. Like I said, there was only 13 counties in Georgia when I became sheriff that had a county police. Now there's only 11. So they're rapidly going away. When a county commission creates a county police, they're putting an extra bill on the taxpayers just for something they want, not something the taxpayers need.
Now, how would you, to buck up at that idea, what would you say to those who say, having a county police is an added resource because, look, jails are overfilled. There's a lot of resources that need to go into protecting those at the jail to make sure there's a lot of resources after the Brian Nichols situation, a lot of resources dedicated to protecting the courthouse that, the sheriff's department doesn't have the resources to prevent and combat crime. Therefore, there is a need for the police department.
They don't have the resources because it was taken from them. Fayette County doesn't have a county police. Douglas County doesn't have a county police. The sheriff is three things by law. He's a chief law enforcer, the chief officer of the court, and the chief jailer. Nowhere does it say 2 out of 3. And they're supposed to be funded to do all 3. So, and that's what they do. They're responsible for all 3. So they have a jail division, they have a field division that deal with the crime, and they have a court division to make sure the courthouse is protected. That's the way it's mostly across the country. It's rare you see a county police. So if you grew up in Clayton or you grew up in a metro area, you think that's normal. But it's really not normal. It's really expensive.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
I didn't know. And I mean, obviously I worked in the DA's office. I didn't know growing up because I never saw the sheriff's department. I would see the local police when I lived in the city limits of Forest Park. And then in the unincorporated areas that I lived in, it was always the county police. So I never saw, short of maybe a roadblock here or there, I never really saw the sheriff's department out there.
Exactly. And here's what you got to think about. The sheriff has the jurisdiction to fight crime. The county police really don't. I used to deputize the county police because it's questionable. We know they don't have jurisdiction outside the county. It's questionable if they even have jurisdiction inside the incorporated cities because it's incorporated and how they're created. The sheriff has unfettered jurisdiction in the city, the counties. Even the state, correct? Even the state. A sheriff's deputy in Clayton could literally pull over a car in Savannah and literally make an arrest. And what it's really designed for is not just to be able to assist other places if they need it without a jurisdiction problem, but criminals don't have jurisdictional lines. They don't worry about, the only jurisdictional lines I've ever known criminals to have is when I was sheriff because they knew if they stepped over that line, what was going to happen. But other than that, they don't care if they're in Forest Park. They don't care if they're unincorporated, incorporated, or we're in Atlanta. They're going to do what they're going to do. We're the only ones, oh my God, this is imaginary line. Well, the sheriff doesn't have that imaginary line. So he will always he was the most effective instrument to fight crime in the Old West. And to this day, he's the most effective to fight crime. But it also depends on who the sheriff is. I mean, there's a difference on if the sheriff is Wyatt Earp or Barney Fife. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Who you put the star badge on really matters. A wise man once told me, you can take a crown and put it on a donkey, and you can move that donkey into a palace and sit him on a throne. It's still a jackass. You know what I'm saying? So, there you go. Yeah.
The opinions of Victor Hill belong to Victor Hill. You said something also about, you gave the example of the old lady who calls and tells you, I think I've even put out social media videos about that. I believe that your popularity arose in large part due to if someone called the sheriff's department with an issue, the response would be fairly quick and it would be like a show of force.
Absolutely.
And now what the kind of the opposite side of that is, if you have neighborhood A and you send cars out there and you move the drug dealers moved out of neighborhood A, they would just move to neighborhood B. Now, the person from neighborhood A is happy with you, right? Because you moved them out of their neighborhood. They just moved to a different neighborhood, a neighborhood B. And so you repeat that process where they're not consistently in one area for a long amount of time, but it would benefit you because person A is happy with you, then person B is happy with you, then person C is happy with you. And so that's kind of my own personal theory of why you were so popular, in that you were responsive to the voters.
But let me stop you on one thing. They may have moved someplace else, but it was out of Clayton County. It was always that conversation. Once we moved them, hey, listen, don't waste your time moving someplace else in Clayton County, because we're coming there too. And it's just I don't want you to waste your U-Haul bill. You know what I'm saying? So you got to move outside. Like I would tell them, hey, there's 159 counties in Georgia, so you got 158 to choose from. Mm-hmm. But it's not going to be here. So anytime that we did an eviction of a drug dealer, right, they were known.
Did you ever personally go and talk to them?
Absolutely. It's called a knock and talk. Mm-hmm. So it's just a visit from your local sheriff. And, think about this. People tend, especially leaders, tend to complicate things. And we even learn to complicate things as cops. Okay, we got a drug house. Okay, we take a complaint. We send it to narcotics. Narcotics does a drive-by. They get a CI to go do a buy.
Right.
They got to do so many buys or whatever. This is a 2-3 month process,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
And if the 2 or 3 months is fast, I've seen it take longer.
Sure. Yeah.
Meanwhile, these guys are hanging out, shooting in the air, wild dogs. Someone comes and does a drive-by, a kid gets hit. People want instant relief. So the first step, sometimes just a talk. There's many drug dealers knocking on the door. Hey, I'm Sheriff Hill. Hey, I know who you are. Now, some of them just took off running. I don't know why. Me and a few deputies getting out, and they just ran out the back door. One ran out the back door, and we looked, and in plain view was a bunch of drugs and rifles. Not sure why they ran, but it was just a simple question. Hey, listen, we're checking to make sure you're not selling drugs. There's a lot of traffic here. Maybe you just got a lot of friends. And, and we just need to eliminate the fact that you're selling drugs. There's a drug dog right there. If you're okay with it, you don't have to. But we could check and make sure no drugs is here.
Did anybody ever take you up on that?
Sometimes they did, believe it or not. And then other people are like, well, no, I wouldn't refer to that. I said, well, listen, I got reason to believe you're selling drugs. Why don't you just go ahead and leave? I mean, because, it's not going to be allowed. I'm going to set a car right down the road for 24 hours a day to make sure I don't sell drugs here. Just go ahead and leave. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised how many was like, okay, done. U-Haul truck, left. The ones that didn't, they still left anyway. They might not have been as friendly. Yeah. They might not, you're not coming in here or whatever. But, if you block the drive-through window of McDonald's and they can't sell Big Macs, what happens? Mm-hmm. Well, same thing with drugs. Now, were they happy? Probably not. But guess what? They didn't have to go to prison, not unless they went somewhere else and got caught. Yeah. And
do you understand the you showing up is what kind of fed the urban legends about, I've heard everything from Victor Hill is shaking down the drug dealers and getting kickbacks. I've heard Victor Hill is part of the gang. I've heard that Victor Hill is the Don, the mafia boss. That you showing up, like, did that ever get back to you? Did your image or the reputation or the legends of you ever get back to you? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Let me tell you, all the time, a lot of times people would talk to me about Victor Hill, and it was some of the most fascinating conversations I ever heard. More than likely, I think they were expecting some guy 6'5" or something like that. And, there's times I've been in barbershops when I used to go to barbershop. I don't have to now, you know what I'm saying? But a conversation would start about Victor Hill, and it was so fascinating. I would get involved, and I'll just say something bad about him. Like, hey, I really don't like that guy, because I just wanted to hear what people had to say. Sure. And I heard some of the most fascinating things that you could. I mean, from one made it all the way up to Arkansas when they did this lawfare and put this false stuff on me, where it went around that I had some son that was beheaded by the cartel, and that's why I came back to take the sheriff's office to get them. Mm-hmm. And literally, I'm in Arkansas, and this young guy walks up to me, and he says, "Hey, man, I heard what happened with your family, with your son. That's messed up, man." And people believe urban legend before they leave the truth. I said, well, I just don't want to talk about it. But I was amazed that it made it that far.
But at the time that you're the sheriff, where was that feedback coming to you?
Yeah, that's the first time I ever heard that was I was a sheriff.
And when you're hearing these things, did you think like, what was your perspective like? For me, when I hear things about me, you know, being a white guy from Clayton County, most people would be afraid to run the risk of like, you're trying to culture vulture and appropriate. I just lean into it. Like, yes, I tell people when I'm on stage, like, yeah, there's not too many 6'2" white dudes putting on for Clayton County.
Right.
Like, I lean into it. I wear the Clayco Till I Die.
Right.
When you're getting that feedback, did you think I'm going to personally keep appearing at these drug dealers' houses and they can think whatever they want? Or did it ever prevent you from doing anything? Or did it encourage you?
Remember this. You can't control what people think. The worst thing that a leader can do is worry about what people think or try to, hey, I got to get this out, because people are going to believe what they're going to believe. You know, I'm sure you, just like me, you meet people and they say, well, you're not the guy that I heard about or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you can outlive a lie. It's one of those things. But always remember this. Lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of giraffes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Now, switching up a little bit, like I said, I read the book. You know, I deal in personal injury. We talked a little bit about one of the cases that I had involve police chase.
Yes. So
tell us your perspective on police chases, favor, not in favor, any type of restrictions. What do you think about police chases?
Police chases are a necessary evil.
I knew you were going to use that word. I knew you were going to use that word.
That doesn't mean we chase everybody for everything. There has to be balance. Right before I left office, I was experimenting with a technology that we actually use, and it worked in a chase where you get behind the car and then there's a device that shoots under the car and disable it. What I tried to do was teach my, Sun Tzu said in the Art of War that the wise general sees problems and prevents them before they happen. So I was trying to teach my deputies, try to prevent the chase from even happening. If it does happen, let's end it quickly with a pit maneuver. Because the longer you chase, the longer not just civilians, the suspect, and you can get hurt or killed. And so, this is an infamous case that people realize that was really one of my deputies and something I told them to do. Right before the Atlanta riots, there's these young kids that get into it with APD.
Now, you're talking about 2020?
Right.
During COVID. Got it.
And it's right around the Atlanta riots, and they take off from the offices and they get stopped by traffic. The other officers come, they break the window. Where there's a scene of a deputy stabbing a car. They thought it was APD. They didn't know. And I actually had to bring my deputies back, because when I saw how the government and the mayor treated the officers and locked them up, I was like, we don't need to be down there. Well, I think they were trying to figure out who that person was, and he was afraid that they were going to lock him up too. And I told him, no, we're going to stand behind you, pay for representation if we have to.
Yeah.
But actually, I told him to do that. Let me tell you how that ties into what we're saying. I had a meeting with my guys, and I was like, listen, if we have to chase, we're going to chase. Because there's certain circumstances you have to chase. You don't chase everybody. You don't chase somebody because they got bubble gum or whatever. But there are situations where if we don't chase, we're actually putting the public at greater risk, because these people are going to eventually hurt or kill somebody. So I said, listen, if we know that this guy is going to run, and we got that opportunity, flatten the tire. As if the fastest way to do it is to get a knife and do it, that's fine. If we're wrong, I'll pay for the tire. But I'd rather pay for a tire than we have an innocent or guilty person dead because of a chase. So he was employing that strategy. Let's disable the car so we don't even have to get to that. And interestingly, he ended up in a situation that was national. They never figured it out. They were so busy posturing and trying to lock up officers and whatever. They never figured out who he was. But that was actually something I taught him to do. All my guys would do. And he realized that when they stopped because of traffic, if that traffic lit up, they were going to take off again. And that's why he was stabbing the tire, to stop their ability to run off. So I've always been a proponent. Stolen cars are the catalyst of crime. Remember, a criminal can't take martyr to crime scenes. If that's the case, we catch them all. Right. Okay, so, and they can't drive their grandmother or girlfriend's car because we're going to run the tag.
They do.
Right.
They still do.
They have. But, that's the still what they call, what's that dumbest criminal stuff, right?
Yeah.
But most criminals realize, okay, I need transportation. So they have to steal a car. That car gets him to the crime scene from the crime scene. And some of those crime scenes are robberies, murders, whatever. So if we take their transportation from them, they're stranded and they don't have the ability to do that. So you have to crack down on stolen cars. Stolen cars are usually connected to other predicate crimes. The first murder one year in Clayton County where a young man was killed, when they came and killed him, was a stolen car. If someone had stopped that car, pit that car, or prevented it from being stolen, they wouldn't even have been able to get there. So anytime I see a lot of violence in the area, I look for where cars are being broken into and stolen, because that's how they get the guns. People leave the doors open and get the guns. And if they just happen to leave the keys in there, now they got a car. So now you're giving them transportation to go rape, rob, and murder, and giving them the weapon to do it. And when you crack down on that, you prevent them. It's like, how do you stop mosquitoes? You go to the nest or water, and you got to kill them there before they're born. Well, you got to stop the criminals from being able to get to the crime scene and have a weapon to be able to hurt people. And if you concentrate on that, people, it's just a stolen car. No, it's not. When you hear people say that, they're dummies. They don't know what they're talking about. I mean, some of these cars have had bodies in the trunk of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So a lot of what I got a theme from, looks like your view of law enforcement and is really law enforcement, but really law prevention. Is that
right?
Is that accurate?
Right. Proactive instead of reactive.
Right.
Most agencies, especially now, react to crime. We want to prevent crime. I remember one time we had the former chairman, who's another dummy, say that we've solved. We have a high percentage solve rate. Okay. Do you want me to solve your murder, or do you want me to prevent you from being killed? Sure. Exactly. Yeah. So instead of concentrating on, we got an 80% solvability rate. Okay, but they're still dead. Right. How do we stop people from getting killed? How do we prevent them from being robbed? So being proactive instead of reactive. Now, interestingly, we're in a age where, I was actually prosecuted for being proactive, and we're probably about to get into that, but think about it. I found a way, hey, we identify people with pre-attack indicators, whatever. These people need to be restrained. And then it was criminalized. I was the first in the history of the United States. Well, guess what? Since they've stopped using the restraint chair, 5 people have been murdered at the jail. Countless stabbings, overdoses, all of this going on, which didn't go on there because what we did, we prevented from even happening.
So push back on the idea. I get it. Surely you're familiar with Minority Report, Judge Dredd, all of these futuristic movies where people are prosecuted for crimes that they haven't committed yet. Right. But they believe that they have the technology or whatever to show hey, they're going to commit these crimes. We're going to stop it before it even happens. But where is the line? Where do you draw the line? Because I'll use a pretty famous example is the war in Iraq, right? George Bush's premise was we're going to stop them from using weapons of mass destruction. Now, let's take away all the politics from it. In theory, that probably sounds like a good idea. You have a state actor that's pretty unstable. And again, we could debate all that, but let's just run with the premise that you are taking action to prevent somebody that is very likely to do it, right? Absolutely. But what if they don't? They could change their mind in a second, right? So how do you crime prevent?
Oh, that's easy.
How do you crime prevent? Because some of the things that you or law enforcement in general, they may think they're preventing, but it's I wasn't going to do that anyway. And so it becomes like a bullying type situation.
No, it doesn't. Let me tell you, the line is death or assault. I found ways to prevent violence without using violence, nonviolent ways, neutral oath, the restraint chair. Listen, you're a lawyer, you go to court. When you see a whole bunch of inmates in courtroom, they're all chained. Correct. Right. It's almost like the restraint chair is no different. Actually, it's more uncomfortable. The restraint chair is more comfortable. Why? To prevent. They may not necessarily think about it. Some may, some don't, but they can't even if they wanted to. It's a prevention tool. They're not being killed. They're not being injured. It's a prevention. It's just like this debate going on with the National Guard right now. If the National Guard was walking through the city shooting people, then of course I wouldn't be for it. But if they're standing there, guard to prevent it, just like I used to put a sheriff's car in front of a drug house. They weren't shooting anybody. They weren't killing anybody. It was just the presence. So you're telling me, and you're a parent. I'm not a parent, but I got nieces and nephews, right? And so I have a love for kids. Maybe not as deep as a father, but close, right?
Yeah.
But don't you think that the parents at that Catholic school and the three other and the other schools have been shot over the years would have been happy if there was a National Guard standing around that school so that person couldn't even go in there? Well, I thought about it, but I don't want them to whatever. We're talking about prevention. So when you're talking about prevention and presence, that's one thing. If you're talking about just walking around assassinating people, well, then of course not. But if restraints prevents a person from killing themselves and killing others, which obviously we've proven it did because there's 5 murders at the jail, assaults the first time we checked, it's probably far worse now. Assaults went up on officers over 100%. Inmates on inmates went up over 200%. So restraining inmates work. And it's not just putting them in a cell, because you can see videos on my Facebook where the officers open the cell door and the first thing, boom, he gets punched. And these people are easy to identify. It's not hard to identify people who are threatening themselves and others. I mean, some of them just outright tell you. They tell you, I'm going to kill myself, or they tell you, I'm going to F everybody up or whatever like that. You already know who they are. They have a history of violence. So prevention is not crossing the line. Now, if we were executing people, then that would be crossing the line.
I guess so. I understand the jail is one thing, but out on the street, right? Like, I remember a friend of mine, shout out to Josh Harold, lawyer up in North Carolina. He did a research paper, and it was about the effectiveness of video cameras. Like, you go to any city now, there's cameras all over the place. And what his research found is that cameras do not prevent crime.
Absolutely,
because they are reactive. The number one way to stop crime is to have a visible presence, because people are not like again, we can talk about the drug dealer. If you put a cop car on a street, people are, even if it's empty, people are not going to want to commit crime if they can see that there is law enforcement there, right? Now, it's another thing, I believe Josh's research was about officers. It was in London, if I'm not mistaken. They were actually foot patrolling. Like, foot patrolling was like so far superior to crime prevention than cameras, right?
Right.
But I guess my point is, if you put a police presence, and I'm using police for sheriffs and county and city, law enforcement presence, how do you coach or train them? Because I guess where I'm leading to is you are not a fan of the idea of community policing. Now, I think your definition differs from mine.
Absolutely.
Or the one that you used, that you gave an example of from the former police chief and commissioner. My definition of community policing is finding officers or finding officers who are from the community that understand the people, and not babying them, not having, lunch and donuts and coffee with them, but allowing them to have some type of discretion in how they interact with the community at large. Do you think it's possible for someone from the community that understands the socioeconomic background to have that type of relationship and at the same time prevent and enforce the law, or you don't think that's possible?
Time and statistics doesn't really prove that. Let me tell you why. Most people can't effectively police their own neighborhoods because of relationships. I mean, we even see it in politics. Like the DA don't want to look into what the chairman is doing when he does something illegal because they're friends or whatever like that. So unless you have a person that can separate, like Sun Tzu said, he said that a good general has to be able to punish those closest to him and reward those that may not be close to him. Most people can't do that. So if you just want to say, hey, we got some guy from the neighborhood, as far as protection and keeping crime down, no, that's not going to do it. It may be a good feel-good thing, but they're not going to take him that seriously. That's how when you see these officers in the school and they want him to be, hey, we want him to play with the kids, rap with the kids. And if you look at videos, those type of officers, when the kids do start trying to kill each other, you don't see the kids, oh my God, he's here, let's stop. Because they're too familiar, and familiarity breeds contempt. Now, I'm not saying that we can't have a relationship with the community, but within reason. First, we got to prioritize and prioritize what is important. Okay, what's important? Do you want your kids getting shot at school, or you want them playing with the cops? And, I love my cop and my cop loves me. I really could care less if they like him or he don't like them. What I want to know is there's a badass at that school that the gangbangers don't go there. Because
there was just a stabbing at a Gwinnett school, South Gwinnett High School.
Exactly. And while the officer was there, correct?
I don't know, but I wouldn't be like,
you wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised because I think most schools now have either an officer or a school resource officer or somebody, some type of somebody on campus.
Usually the guys they pick to be there, not always, but probably 80% or more are nice guys. They can't really shoot. They can't really fight. Yeah. Or a nice female. And, let's hug the kids or whatever. I need someone there to protect my kids.
I
need to know if this dude pops up killing kids, that that ain't going to last long if it even starts at all.
Yeah.
Right. As a matter of fact, I don't even want my kids. They don't even have to like him. They need to know to act right when they see him. As long as he's not abusing them or doing anything to them, I have absolutely no care about whether they like him or he like them. I want him to protect that school so my kids can come home safe.
I remember we had Officer Randall. I don't remember his first name. I can't remember if he was Clayton County PD or maybe he was Forest Park. He was like 6'9", 6'10", skinny guy.
I remember him.
He's a real tall, skinny guy. And I remember he could fight.
Right.
Because at Forest Park, we had scraps.
Yes, y'all did.
We had scraps.
Yes.
And I remember one time, these two dudes started fighting. He came in and picked one, snatched him and threw him, and then the other one tried to fight him. He put him down. But I would tend to agree that. Let me ask you this. With no disrespect to the ones who are working the schools, but is it fair to say they are the ones who are not going to be your first choice out on the road in hostage situations and armed robbery situations? How does it appear to you that the ones at the schools are there because they're not as active or as able to handle the people out on the streets?
I think that law enforcement leaders tend to take folks like that and put them in courtrooms and put them in schools. And it's horrible because even though something may not happen in a courtroom every blue moon, even though kids will get shot at schools every day, when it happens, it's pretty horrible.
It should be at almost zero.
Exactly. So like Brian Nichols, look, you got this guy as an ex-football player, and you've got a lady that's basically a senior citizen with a weapon and badge by herself. So it's nothing for him to take his gun, her gun and hurt her. And what does he do with that gun? Kill a judge, kill a clerk, kill a deputy or whatever. If the right people were with him to begin with, he wouldn't even done it. If he saw a guy that can match his energy, his strength or whatever, he wouldn't even thought to try him. And I think in law enforcement, we need to quit. We've got to hire people who can run, who can shoot. Okay, they have to be able to run a guy down and with equipment on. If you're taking hostage, your family's taking hostage, you want to be able to know, you don't want this guy shooting at 70, 80%. You want to know he can stop the hostage taker without harming your family. And that's what I used to look for to recruit. And I wanted to change the sheriff's office to have people who could actually do the job and phase these other folks out in retirement. Sometimes folks would come to me and say, hey, I want to come work for you, but I don't want to go on the street. I want to go to the courthouse. Okay, right then I knew I was going to hire them. Because you already have this attitude that, well, if I go to the court, nothing's going to happen, and I really can't handle it anyway.
There was actually I had left, I think in 2017, there was actually an inmate who tried to attack a judge. And I can't remember the deputy's name, but it was a big dude. He unfortunately passed away afterwards, but I don't know if you recall that. He ended up.
Did he have glasses? And he was like a bodybuilder?
Wait,
was it that guy?
Leave this out.
Sure.
It was Bunkum.
Oh, yes.
He was in the courtroom. Now we can get back in. But the defendant ended up trying to attack the judge, and Buncombe was in there, and he laid him out. But, you know, he could have gotten to him a little bit sooner.
Exactly.
And so I understand what you're saying, because, you know, if you had somebody that was not as able as him or as big as him, that could have been a real problem.
Let me tell you something. We filled all our positions at the sheriff's office because I tried a different type of recruiting. And you got to understand, we weren't even paying as much as the county police for it, because the commissioners purposely gave their people more money than ours because of all the politics. But I would go out here and recruit and tell people, this is how I want you to recruit. Okay, if you're faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, and you can leap buildings in a single bound, I'm interested.
Right.
And that changed the game. And then, you know, and believe it or not, you know, of course, you probably hear me, you know, it's kind of funny because I'm quoting a lot of so-called dictators, but, you know, we can learn from all. But one night I'm watching this documentary on Genghis Khan. I can't sleep. I was like, let me see what this dude's about. And it was profound. And that one documentary changed the course of the sheriff's office. He said that he stopped promoting on seniority, relationships, whatever like that. He only promoted on ability. And of course, we know there's this famous scene where they find this guy that can really fight, and they said, don't kill him. Genghis Khan would be interested. And he ended up working for Genghis Khan. When I started recruiting like that, when I started promoting people based on performance, not, okay, you've been here 20 years, so you're next. You know, I wouldn't care if you were there 8 months. If you were performing, then we want you to get the promotion, or we want you to get the next car. We want whatever. That's when the sheriff's office became legendary. It had nothing to do with me. It just had to do with me finding the right people, because I wasn't out there personally running these folks down.
Yeah.
But when we started looking for those type of folks, and those folks that really wanted the police, and they were willing to come over there, even though they could have made 5% more at PD because they really wanted the police. That's when the Clayton County Sheriff's Office became respected and feared, just by that one nuance. I remember I had a sergeant one time tell me, hey, and some new cars came in. There was a guy who'd been here 20 years, and he would tell people, I'm not doing that. I'm not writing tickets or whatever. We were waiting for him to retire. He's somebody I wish I could have got rid of the first day, like I tried, whatever. Well, he said, hey, we got this guy. He's only been here 8 months. He's outperforming everybody. But we can't get him a car because all the senior guys. But why can't get him a car? Well, you know, we got this guy. He's senior. I said, yeah, call him in, unpack his car, give him a motor pass, and give it to this guy. Just that simple. We reward the performance. And when we did that, the crime rate went down, and the sheriff's office became respected and feared. And people knew when they saw a sheriff's car versus a police car that, okay, well, the sheriff here, we mean business. And it changed the trajectory and the image of the sheriff's office. We thought forever, but of course, now we see it digress back to where it was.
So let me ask you this. You said something very interesting. It seems to me that your approach, and you did it with, well, you called the jail the paramilitary style,
yes.
The Hilton,
right?
Paramilitary.
I didn't come up with that name. Actually, it was an inmate that named it that. Baby. Right.
But it seems like, you know, your viewpoint, your outlook on law enforcement is very militaristic.
Absolutely.
Did that come from military training, or did you have a mentor, a predecessor? Like, how did your worldview get shaped into that? And then the second part is, you said you've used the word fear.
Absolutely.
I personally believe fear is a very, very strong motivator.
Yes.
You can use fear to get people to do what you want. They may not doing it willingly. I really think there's only two real emotions to get people to do something: fear or love.
Absolutely.
Right. I believe that love is the greater one, because then they'll want to do it. Fear you use to make them do it. But in
law enforcement, you need fear.
Sure.
Love doesn't work. Right.
So I get that's your viewpoint.
Right.
So you have this militaristic, you know, we're going to impose fear on people.
Fear on criminals,
right?
Right.
But do you think that may have bled over into non-criminals to act as a prevention? Like, I know I'm talking a lot, but to give you an example, right? I'm at the grocery store with my kids, and I see a family walking up, and then there's an officer behind me, and the mom goes, You see that? You better act right or he's going to get you.
I think it's beautiful.
I disagree. I
disagree. I'm gonna let you tell your point. I'm gonna tell you why I'm right on this.
Okay. I think that is and again, I'm not saying I'm right.
Right.
I think there is a better way to do it because
no one's found it.
Because I'm saying at 5, 6, 7 in the formative years of our childhood, these are our formative years from, let's just say 6 or 7 all the way up to 17, right? I think that if I am trained and conditioned to fear law enforcement, fear oftentimes is coupled with distrust.
No,
and I'm gonna tell you why. Because look, if I'm a good kid, I'm minding my own business, and my mom was like, if you do something, he's gonna get you. I'm like, shit, I'm not like, act right or he's gonna get you. Like, bro, I'm acting right. I'm not
Most
doing
of the time
anything.
I saw that the kids were acting up anyway. They just didn't tell the kids that. So let me tell you why fear is good and why fear worked. I feared my dad. Actually the man that taught me, I feared him. Everybody did. Mm-hmm. He taught me everything I knew. He was the chief of police of Charleston. He actually wrote a book called Let's Take Back Our Streets. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you what he taught us about fear. He said that when he was a major in, I can't remember what jurisdiction, there was this 90-year-old woman that would push this grocery cart through the neighborhood full of money. And no one would never rob her. Why? Because they knew whose money it was. Mm-hmm. And they knew that if they robbed her, it had nothing to do with her. She was 90 years old. She didn't have a gun or anything like that. But they knew that if they robbed this woman, that the consequences was going to be swift and severe. Mm-hmm. So here, this woman could walk around with hundreds of thousands of dollars and nothing happened. And that's what he made the criminals fear. He actually ran them north of our jurisdiction to North Charleston because they were afraid to deal with him and how he led. And it brought the crime rate down. Criminals don't stop raping and robbing and murdering people because of love. If that was the case, we had our sheriff get on TV just a few months ago and cry. And you got cops breastfeeding babies and playing with dolls. That hasn't stopped the raping, robbing, and murdering. Right. What stops them is a sheriff's car outside. Oh, okay, well, we got to go. This big debate. If there's a bunch of National Guardmen standing there, okay, well, if I pull out a gun, whatever. And like you said, fear may not be because you don't necessarily want to, but you fear doing so. Well, good. If you're too afraid to kill my family or rape my friend, good. If that's the way to stop you, good. It needs to be fear. And it needs to be. And then if you got this child that's being disrespectful to his mother or whatever, and I've seen that. I've been the guy in uniform, and they're telling, hey, Johnny, do this, Johnny, do that, and he's whatever. And she said, you see the police officer over there? I go right along with it. What's the problem? You don't know how to respect your mother? Mm-hmm. You want to go with me? No, sir. Good. How about apologize to your mom? There's nothing wrong with that. But, everybody want to, hey, let's hug him. Let's kiss him. We've hugged and kissed criminals, and what have us got now?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm not saying hug and kiss. What I'm saying is that I have seen through my own experiences, and I don't claim to be, you have the experience in running the sheriff's department. I'm just saying in my own experience, instead of saying fear the officers, you need to understand if you fuck around and find out, they're going to be the ones to enforce it.
And what is that? Fear.
I don't see this fear as more as acknowledgement.
We're doing semantics now. Like, hey, don't call them snipers, call them marksmen. Don't call. At the end of the day, they got a rifle or whatever. So we could call it what we want. At the end of the day, let's not do anything because there's marksmen there. Or let's not do anything because there's this big burly cop there. Good. If that stops a guy from mugging my grandmother because she's afraid of this cop, great. Stay afraid. We got to stop it.
I don't want to, I guess my point is, what I'm saying is not to fear the officer, fear the action.
Same thing.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so because part of, and maybe you'll disagree with me on this, I believe part of law enforcement is not only to protect, but it's also to serve. Right? Like if there's an emergency, I mean, we could talk about cats in the trees and shit like that.
Right.
But not all of law enforcement is just crime prevention. It's also assisting, right? And so I think when you condition people to only fear, you lose the part of
I didn't say
the
only
trust.
fear. Remember,
I hear you.
The people who feared me or feared my deputies were people doing wrong. The little old ladies didn't fear us. They were happy we were there. Right. And here's what you got to think about. It's going to be a fear of that person. Let me tell you why. If we make Barney Fife the sheriff, which we probably have, and we make the chief of police, Andy Griffin.
Yeah.
No criminals, and they don't fear them, and they're not going to. But if Bat Madison and Wyatt Earp comes up from the grave and they become sheriff, that's a different thing. So there's going to be a part of fear of that person because of the aura they carry. So there's no way for Barney Fife. Well, you know what, Barney Fife, I fear his actions. They don't even fear his actions because who he is, he's not capable of giving action. So we got to get past that. I said people talk about, we don't want people standing around with rifles. Well, do you want people running around shooting everybody in the mall or whatever? I've been to foreign countries where it's normal for folks to be out with rifles, and I'm glad they're there because I don't want people coming up out of the ground and shooting. I've been in some very dangerous places, from Israel to third world countries in Africa. And, hell, when I was in Haiti, there was about 4 or 5 guys with rifles going with me everywhere they want. I never said, well, you know what? I don't want people to fear me. Could you put them down? So whatever. Good. I don't have to worry about no posse coming at me. We got to be realistic about that. All of this feel good. Well, we don't want to look too rough, or we don't want to. If that stops killers from doing what they're supposed to do, it's fine. We've got to get over it because, as was said to me by a wise man, who do you send to catch a killer? Not a Boy Scout. You have to send another killer. Now, he's not a person that's just out randomly killing people. Yeah. But he's someone that has the ability to do that to protect you and me.
Sure. For sure.
That would make me sleep good at night. It doesn't make me sleep good at night knowing what Barney Fife is out there. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I think there is, I'm not even saying in the middle ground, but my opinion is I agree with you. They do need to, there is an element of fear, right? For example, I don't go out and rape, rob, and murder because I am afraid of going to jail and prison.
Exactly.
I'm afraid of that. I'm not afraid of the deputy or the law enforcement who's going to come and get me. I'm afraid of that. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what I'm saying is have the fear of, if you commit these crimes, I'm more scared of jail than anything because I fear losing freedom.
When I was a kid.
And autonomy.
When I was a kid, we were afraid of the coaches and the principals. There was no cops in the school. The principals carried a big stick. You would have thought they were walking tall or something. Right. When that fear left, kids took over. Now you see on YouTube principals, teachers getting assaulted, kicked, beaten, whatever. When they took that away from the school. Exactly. Right. Okay, same thing what they did with the jail. When they took away, hey, oh my God, let's go rescue these inmates. They were in restraint chairs. Oh my God, let me protect you from this mean sheriff or whatever. And how did the criminals thank the DA? How did they thank the people involved in that who said, we're protecting constitutional rights, which they're lying. They're full of it. They're really just trying to come after me. But here's the thanks they got for it. 5 dead bodies, riots, stabbings, or whatever. They didn't say, you know what? Thank you for taking that guy away that had the restraint here in the military. We're going to act good now. We didn't need that because now we feel the love. No, they just started stabbing and selling drugs. And it's a dangerous place now. Yeah. A very dangerous place. So it works. We could try and sugarcoat it all we want. If it was just as simple as Barney singing, I love you, you love me, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work because they tried it. There's a Barney down there trying to hug everybody, and what they're doing, let's start stabbing and let's sell drugs. You know what I'm saying?
So, all right. You open up a can, and I'm going to just say this because we could talk about this for days.
I know.
We could talk about this for days.
I know.
The kids in the schools taking over and fighting. I think it stems from a couple of things that I think it started in my generation. I was born in the early 80s.
So y'all responsible for this?
No.
I'm messing with you. No.
Maybe.
I'm messing with you.
Maybe.
Go ahead.
But
go ahead.
The idea of, the schools have become or people view it more as of a babysitting thing, kind of like the jail. The jail is viewed as like the sheriffs are the babysitters of the jail. The teachers are the babysitters. I don't believe that's what the school is for. So you have the attitude that these kids are saying, well, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my mama. You're not my daddy. And that's the attitude that's what they're being conditioned with, because kids don't know shit. Like, they repeat whatever they're around their environment. And so when you have the attitude of, you can't tell me what to do because you're not basically an authority figure, that's what leads. Like, there is an absence of authority in schools. In those situations where a teacher is getting beat up or shit flung at them and stuff like that, there's an absence of an authority and a recognition of authority. The power structure is off.
And where does the authority come from? From the consequences. Check this out. First of all, it started at home. Okay. You know, we got some crazy prosecutors. We got one right here in Clayton County. Okay. And when they started locking up parents for corporal punishment, then we saw this where parents can't tell me what to do. When they started locking up teachers, well, the teachers can't tell us what to do. When they started locking up cops, up to and including me, well, they can't tell us what to do either. So we took over the jail. So what you got prosecutors alluding with disobedient, disrespectful kids, criminals, or whatever. And now, well, we're going to prosecute the parents because we don't believe in corporal punishment, whatever. People think legislators create policy, but prosecutors have more of an effect on society and policy than anybody else.
Man, you keep going.
Right.
Going
yeah,
down,
we keep
the
going
rabbit
down the
hole,
rabbit
man.
hole. Right. So when you get folks like that, well, now parents are afraid to discipline their kids. Well, if I spank them, they're going to go tell the teacher or call the police and get me locked up, which happened to a good friend of mine not too long ago. The teachers, oh my God, and we're more busy. Okay, how many parents and teachers and cops can we lock up? And it just gave full reign. Well, who started that? Prosecutors. And that's why there has to be safeguards in place to control these folks, because again, like I told you, you move a donkey in the palace and put a donkey on the throne and put a crown on the donkey, and you end up with a jackass. You still got a jackass. So when you put a jackass as a prosecutor and you give them a grand jury and they realize they can prosecute anyone for anything, then you get this chaos that we got now. The chaos at the jail, the chaos at the schools, and the chaos in the homes.
Now, you see, I'm not responding to.
Of course not. I
I'm
know.
not responding.
You got to be in the room. Let me do the hard stuff. Let me do the hard stuff.
Look,
you be the guy, the middle guy.
This man is seriously like not missing an opportunity to throw shots.
Oh yeah, I do it because it's the truth.
And so, like, I will say this, and I have presented grand jury indictments, and people don't understand. I think prosecutors, like trial line prosecutors, need more discretion. Like, I never practiced in Fulton County as a prosecutor, but my friends did. And it was literally like, we have no discretion to do anything. So my understanding is a lot of the stuff in the DA's office and when I was prosecuting in 2012 to 2016 is, everything would be a non-negotiated plea. Like, the judges hated the DA, Paul Howard. The judges hated the prosecutors because they couldn't do anything because Paul Howard was the elected official, and basically just like, I'm not giving anybody authority to do nothing. You prosecute these, and it was all a political thing. Like, well, if they get out and do something, it's the judge's fault, not our fault, right? I say all that to say this. I really think that there needs to be a lot more discretion to just regular line prosecutors. And you may disagree with this, and I really don't care. Like, if you can't convince me as a Clayton County citizen that this person needs to go, like, everybody knows if you get found guilty, you're going to prison. Like,
right.
They know that. You can't talk about it in trial. You can't talk about the punishment, but everybody knows if you get convicted of murder, that's life.
Right.
It goes without saying.
So how do you exactly?
So my
Good
thing
point.
is like, I do not give a shit about a crackhead who was loitering at the Quick Trip and had less than a gram of crack on his person. Like,
but
I don't care.
You should. I don't think they should go to jail for long periods of time, but you should, because that left unchecked leads to the murder, leads to the robbery. That has to be dealt with. Now, doesn't mean you take a person and put them in jail for 30 years because they had a gram of crack like these dummies been doing. Of course not. But that has to be dealt with.
And see, I get what you're saying, right? And it becomes like this problem. If left unchecked, then you've got 15 crackheads outside of Quick Trip, which is going to attract, like it's going to push away business, because I don't want to get gas at Quick Trip if there's 15 people outside. Like I hate going to gas stations where there's people panhandling. I hate it because I don't want to be bothered. And we talked about this. I try to take the money that I take from insurance companies and I do good things with it. One thing I don't do very, very often is when people are outside at the stoplights or off the exits or whatever, I don't give them money. And I have told my children, do not give them money when we're in the car, because they come up to the car. I don't know if they've got a gun. I don't know if they have a knife. They might not. And they may well be hard up on their luck or something, but I have no idea if this person has fecal matter on their hands or they just wipe their butt. Like, I don't know. Maybe they're not doing those things. Mm-hmm. But to me, the risk of them doing it is not worth. Like, what if my daughter wants to give them $1 bill and they just start choking the shit out of her?
And that has happened.
I don't doubt it. So I tell them, like, we can donate money and give to organizations and we can give to people and stuff like that, but not in the middle of a car. And so I get the idea. If left unchecked, it just breeds and breeds and breeds and breeds and breeds. But at the same time, it's like, shit, what do we do with them? Because putting them in a jail with the rapists, robbers, and murderers isn't the best thing for them either. Okay, so tell me what the answer.
Congress. Yeah, that's why I'm running for Congress. I got the answer for that.
Okay.
Let me tell you, I was in a third world country as an advisor to their military because they didn't have a police or they didn't have correction officers, but they were in the process of creating it. And I'm driving down the street and my guide tells me something I'll never forget. He says, we don't have any homelessness here. I said, really? How did you eliminate that? Mm-hmm. He said, let me show you something. So he takes me by all these buildings. I said about maybe 8 stories, and they weren't the Hilton. They were. I wouldn't say Motel 6, but it was livable. It was nice. Sure. Right. And he said the government took all of them and provided them housing, so there's no excuse for them to be out here. Mm-hmm. They just eliminated it just like that. I've actually drawn up a reform act that would be able to do that. Now, there's another problem that's going on, because you're right. We're criminalizing homelessness. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong. You just don't give them a place to stay and they just get to hang out and do whatever. I mean, it has to be police, for lack of a better term. There has to be folks that are able to get jobs and stuff. There's things that can be done. But at least 48% of homeless people have mental health issues. Mm-hmm. Right. And we have criminalized mental illness. You'd be surprised how many people in jail, they're really there for mental illness. I had a lady when I was sheriff. She kept running in front of cars. Mm-hmm. For 3 hours, my deputy tried to find a place to take her and couldn't. So we had to charge her with impeding traffic just so we could keep her safe and so she could get medical help. How this all started was back in 1963. John F. Kennedy, I'm sure he meant well. He didn't see the domino effect, but he signed this Mental Health Act, and they thought that outpatient treatment and medication would solve the problem, and they got away from asylums. And basically, they ended up pushing a lot of these people to homelessness because some of them are just too dangerous to live with anybody. They're a danger to their family, to themselves, or whatever. And that's where we ended up there. There has to be long-term and sometimes permanent care for mental health people. Mm-hmm. So we have to have those again. That's the only way to get there. If we do that, we take 48% of the homeless off the street. Then there's some people who are homeless just by happenstance. Once you provide places for the mentally ill where we can keep them safe and keep them from society, from harming others and harming themselves. Once we provide a place for the homeless, then we don't have to criminalize. If there's a guy on panhandling, okay, listen, there's no excuse. You got a place to go. Mm-hmm. So you can't live in the woods. You can't do that. So look here, we can drive you there or we can drive you to jail.
What if they don't want to do it?
They want to do it. Now it's criminalized because they're saying we don't want a place to stay. We don't want a program. We just want to be out here and take money and go in the woods and shoot drugs. Okay, we'll lock them up. But there are people up there who, let's provide them a place to stay. Let's provide mental health people a mental health center where they could live at. Because other than that, all we're doing is criminalizing. When we did the estimates, we do that. Will it cost a lot of money? Yeah, it's going to cost a whole bunch. But the savings was even more astronomical. You're talking about cutting down the prison population about nearly 30%. And you know, that's $1 billion industry. It would save billions. The initial investment would do whatever. And that's how you solve that problem.
So let me segue.
Sure.
Right? Go into a hot topic. So you had your case, you've referenced it multiple times with the lawfare.
Sure.
It was not prosecuted on the local level. You had a case that was prosecuted on the local level and you beat it.
Right.
You won
and
that.
That's why they took it to the feds, because they felt they wouldn't get a conviction there.
Right.
And they really wasn't going to get a conviction there either. They cheated, but we can talk about that. Right. Yeah. You know, when you lie to the jury and then say, hey, let me handcuff your hands, and you can't tell them this started over a campaign. You can't tell them the judge is friends with Tasha, and the judge's husband used to work for the DA's office when they came to that. You know, that's a lot not to tell the jury. Then the jury thinks, oh my God, it's just 6 guys in a restraint chair. And then they leave out that they solicited these guys. Some of these guys have been out of my jail almost a year. They get a knock at the door. Hey, were you in a restraint chair? Yeah. Oh, wow, I can get my charges dropped? Oh man, I can get a lawsuit and get some money? Yeah. By the way, I think I urinated on myself and I think my arm is injured. And that's really what happened. We never had a lawsuit. We never had a complaint. We never had a death about the use of the restraint chair. Now, how do you explain, it's probably going to be on the news today, how do you explain that a guy named Gabriel Aries gets put in a restraint chair, beaten unconscious, according to him? Now, I wasn't there, didn't give the order, didn't whatever.
It wasn't a code red like Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men? No code red issued?
No code red, no nothing. And it happens at my jail. And when I find out about it, we find out that it was covered up by someone in Internal Affairs who got fired over it. And this is around the time all this other stuff is happening. Well, guess what? They give him $5 million and they close the case. Okay, no federal investigation, no local investigation. You beat a guy unconscious and you get indemnified and you don't get prosecuted. I ordered people to be restrained who are checked every 15 minutes. Even the judge said it's sentencing. Usually these cases is assaultive behavior, but none of that occurred. I didn't hit them, didn't strike them. Actually, they were checked by a nurse before they got in. And I go to prison and 2 deputies, or how many deputies they're saying, beat a guy unconscious after being in a restraint chair. No criminal prosecution. Do you see what's really going on here? And it started from a political campaign. How the guy's name on the search warrant was working on a campaign of a guy running against me for sheriff who I fired and locked him and his wife up. A guy, you probably don't know him, Robert and Jerry and Haas, some magazine scam. She's kind of loony. But the thing about it is this. That's how it started. These are friends of the DA with Tasha Mosley. I guess she's the only magazine that someone was interested in her being in because it's a fake magazine. She couldn't get in a real magazine. So she's like, oh my God. Right. And then next thing you look, she's referring this case there. Who's on the task force, the FBI task force? Dennis Baker. Another Looney Tune that I'm sure you know because you used to work there. And he led the investigation when they did the RICO charges, when they allege I stole my police car, the same car, 5 times and put it under RICO. These are the type of dummies we have in power. And meanwhile, while they're coming after me for a restraint chair, which is obvious, hey, let's get him out so we can get our guy in for sheriff, which is really wasn't Haas they wanted. They really wanted Jeff, who can't find a prostitute in a prostitution house. So glad that didn't happen. But they do all of that to get me out and let these guys beat someone unconscious, almost let Robert Haas get away almost entirely with stealing guns and forging tickets for strippers and all the stuff he was doing, which is why he got fired. Think about that. That's what we call lawfare, when you use the criminal justice system to weaponize it. And the sad part about lawfare is we only hear about it when it's celebrities and politicians. You hear about it with me or the president or Young Thug or whatever. But it happens to people all the time.
Yeah.
And especially with grand juries. And we got to touch the grand jury before we leave. Yeah.
Really quick on
Sure.
on grand juries. Then I want to move on to the time that you spent in federal custody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that the criminal justice system, at least on the state level, is a process. You start with an arrest, or maybe a search warrant, or an arrest warrant, or if it's committed in front of a law enforcement officer, they effect an arrest. The first procedure is you go before a judge for a first appearance if you haven't already bonded out.
Absolutely.
At your first appearance, which I've presided over, the judge just says, these are your charges, this is your bond, this is your conditions. If you bond out, your case goes to state or superior court. If not, you have a preliminary hearing.
Yes.
And preliminary hearing is it's like a mini trial where the threshold is not beyond a reasonable doubt. It's just probable cause, which is 50% plus 0.1. Right. Almost always, a judge who's hearing the evidence is going to find probable cause. Almost always. I don't remember the last time I did interning and in the DA's office, I don't know, probably thousands of probable cause hearings.
You know why? Because when officers know they got to go before a judge, they know they got to bring the elements of the crime, and they know they have to meet that threshold.
Right.
There is no threshold with a grand jury. The defendant is not there. There's no attorney, but keep going.
So then if it's a felony case in Georgia, it can either be accused or I think murder is the only one that's required for an indictment. But the more serious crimes are presented to a grand jury. I don't know if they still do, but in Clayton, they met once a week.
Every Wednesday.
And what you're getting at is the defendant in a grand jury proceeding has no right to be there. There's no defendant. Right. There's no defense attorney. Hell, many times, there's not even the victim. I actually got in trouble for bringing victims to grand jury.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, why am I getting in trouble for bringing the person who is the victim? And the reason behind it is, I'm going to use a very simple example. Boyfriend and girlfriend, or husband and wife.
Right.
The husband would attack the wife or the girlfriend. It's clear as day. She had bruising and all this stuff. 4 months down the road, she's saying, I don't want to prosecute. I love him. We have made up. I don't know how, because they've got a no contact provision in their bond, but whatever. They're clearly violating that. Clearly violating it. But anyway, the victim says, I don't want to prosecute. Okay, so now as a prosecutor, I have a choice to make. Do I protect this person from themselves, right? Or do I go with their wishes and say, if they don't want to prosecute, that's them. They're making that choice. I want to get your opinion on that in just a second.
Sure, absolutely.
So that's question number one. In that situation, what is Victor Hill's stance? If you're the prosecutor, do you abide by their wishes and not prosecute? Or do you save them from themselves, right? Because this is extremely common. So what I would do is, in Clayton, I guarantee in Fulton, DeKalb, all the metro Atlanta counties, when you have these domestic violence situations, the victim tells you go fuck yourself. I'm not showing up for court. So I did it to see if they were going to come to grand jury or not. Because I knew if they came to grand jury, they were 100% behind the prosecution.
Right.
And if they didn't, it was very likely that they were going to be an uncooperative witness. They were going to probably say they made the whole thing up. And it's going to look horrible in front of a jury in Clayton County, because they're like, why are we here? This person who you're saying is a victim ain't cooperating. That's reasonable doubt enough. Now, if you've got great evidence, 911 calls, photos, eyewitnesses, every now and again, the office would prosecute even with an uncooperative witness.
So, the problem with this is, I call it deer in the headlight leadership, because you can't look at this in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. The problem with a lot of leaders is they want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So let's say Officer tases somebody, that person just happens to have a bad heart. Okay, take all the tasers away. This actually happened here in metro area. It happened in DeKalb County. Mm-hmm. We're not tasing anybody because somebody tased and they die, right? Instead of let's maybe figure out another way, or sometimes it's just an unfortunate thing, because there's no way you can be in a fight with a guy and say, hey, by the way, do you have a bad heart? You see what I'm saying?
For sure.
Well, when they took the tasers away, we know what happened. The shootings went up because the officers didn't have anything intermediate to do. Mm-hmm. So you got a situation where a domestic violence victim says, I want to drop charges, then they get killed. Well,
and that's what the DA doesn't want.
Right.
They don't want somebody with a microphone in their face. Why did you dismiss these charges?
So then they do this widespread where everybody's going to jail, and and it's unrealistic because whoever they put out the house with no contact probably has no place else to go, but he has to whatever. And you're looking at it in a vacuum. Instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you have to play King Solomon and split the baby. You got to be able to look at all the indicators. Just like I could look at a person, hey, there's pre-attack indicators, this person needs to be restrained, is whatever. And unfortunately, we probably don't have a lot of people that can do that. That's another issue. But when you take away that type of discretion and you just go across the board because, we had a car crash, so we don't chase anybody no more. Mm-hmm. Now all the murderers and robbers are getting away and they're looking at the police and shooting a birdie because you can't chase me. It can't just be thrown out in a vacuum. The leader has to have some type of strength and say, listen, how can we do this better? How can we prevent that from happening? But you can't just throw it out in a vacuum. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. The problem with grand juries is this. A lot of people don't realize this. Grand juries have been abolished everywhere except America and Liberia. And Liberia rarely uses it. 2 states have abolished grand juries in America. The United Kingdom abolished grand juries in the 1930s. Ironically, in the home of the free or brave, we still have a star chamber. A prosecutor can walk in and tell people whatever they want. The defendant can't be there. His defense,
unless they're an
counsel
elected official. Unless there are a couple of exceptions to the presence.
A couple of exceptions, right?
Yeah.
But and you can't mount a defense. If that didn't exist, I would have never been indicted. A lot of people you see that got indicted it would have never happened because it would have never met the threshold. There's no way you would have went to a judge and told him, hey, the sheriff stole his police car 3 years ago 5 times. It doesn't meet the theft of a motor vehicle. And by the way, Judge, can you put RICO on it? There's no way you would have went to a magistrate judge and said, well, he put the guy in a restraint chair because he said that he had pre-attack indicators. Well, and the policy says he can, his training says he can, but we believe it's punishment. It would have never happened. And by having this grand jury that way, quite frankly, I wish there was a way to abolish grand juries, but it would take a constitutional amendment federally. Mm-hmm. But what we can do is reform it. And if we reform it where you have to be notified, you're there, your counsel is there, you can hear what's being said, and you can mount a defense. It would be less indictments. First of all, prosecutors would stop doing the dumb stuff that they've been doing, like what Tasha did with me in these cases, because they know, I can't do that anymore because I can't be in a room with no transparency and lie to people like I've been doing. And then you would see more quality cases get there. There was an estimate, and I actually got it on my social media. If you just reform the grand jury, that would cut the prison population. Because what happens is you get all of these weird cases, like when you indict a coach for murder because they're coaching a track star and they collapse and fall. Maybe it was negligence. Maybe it's involuntary manslaughter. Certainly not murder. You know what murder is. They didn't plan to kill her. Right. But you got dummies like our DA doing that all the time, like she did to these coaches at Monday's Mill. So now you clog up the criminal justice system. You say you're doing it in the name of, well, let's stack the charges so they can plead to this. Well, why would you stack charges on something they didn't do? They didn't murder anyone. If you want to say it's involuntary manslaughter, fine. And then if they're going to do a plea deal, it shouldn't be to what they're actually guilty of. It should be to something else. But when you get DAs doing that, you stack the criminal justice system. You get this backlog of cases. You got a bunch of people fearful. If I go to trial, they're going to give me more. So they take a plea. Who knows how many people are actually innocent but took a plea because it was the easy way out. And now you got an increased prison population, a backlog. We would save millions if we did that. And we would prevent dummies like our DA from having that type of power just to mess with people.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, when I was prosecuting many times, and for anyone that sees this, you can actually look at the indictments. If you have a case, you can look at the indictment and it says witness on there, right? Look at how many of the witnesses aren't actually the arresting officer or the victim. In a grand jury proceeding, you can use an investigator.
Right.
That has
who didn't witness anything.
Right. So the flip side to that is, the person's constitutional rights don't extend to a grand jury proceeding because it doesn't carry any penalty of jail or incarceration or anything like that. That's the flip side to it, right? Like, it's hard. I hear what you're saying. It's hard because, let's just say that we did away with grand juries. Everything was an accusation and everybody had a right to trial. Well, then you're having 50 bazillion trials.
So I'm not saying do away with it. Let's reform it.
Right. But
the
you're
defendant
basically
gets to be there.
Right. But it's basically another trial. Like, you get past the grand jury.
It's a mini trial. But it would stop. Listen.
Or just make mandatory probable cause hearings. Then if the judge finds probable cause, that's the indictment right there.
Anything other than what they're doing now, where you can't be there, you can't get the records, you can't hear. Let me tell you, when you see a DA says we got an indictment, they literally can indict a ham sandwich. You can indict anything.
I'm not contesting that.
Usually when they say we didn't get an indictment, they're lying too, because they went in there and told the grand jury not to indict. So what they'll do is take a case before the grand jury and then act as if though, you see, I tried, but they didn't do it.
100%.
They go in there and they lead the grand jury to do whatever they want to do. So they can indict who they want, or they could take a case before them and
make it look like shit.
Right. We didn't get an indictment or whatever. That's wrong. And then the crazy part about it is most of these DAs like Tasha Mosley and the ones in my case, they're up there talking about, we're protecting inmates' constitutional rights. Well, when you lie to a grand jury to get me indicted, you're violating constitutional rights there. And all the other people you lied on. When you go to a grand jury and tell them that 2 coaches should be indicted for murder, when that doesn't fit the element of the crime, you violated their constitutional rights. You're a liar because they didn't murder the person. They may have been negligent. Mm-hmm. I don't know the whole story, but one thing we know for sure, they didn't sit around and plan that. They're probably just as traumatized as the parents are that a child died on their watch.
Sure.
But when you give a grand jury crimes that really didn't exist, that's another level of perjury. And you're violating people's constitutional rights every day. And we've got to put guards in place to stop dummies like Tasha Mosley, this other fool in Fulton County. We got to. Because we end up clogging the system with a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff. And the real robbers and rapists are running free.
Mm-hmm. Switching gears a little bit. So when I was going through your book, and I don't know if you meant for it to come across this way or not.
Sure.
But when I was reading it, it was like when you went into your school, because you call the cellmates and your colleagues that were locked up with you, you call them your professors.
They became my professors.
They became your professors.
Surprise, yeah.
Right. So when you walk up in there, the way that I read it is like you walked up in there, everybody's super cool. Like there was never any issues.
You need to reread that chapter.
No, I'm telling you, because like I didn't get a story like this dude came and fucking punched me in the face. You're like, there was a guy that was like, hey, from what you said, there was a guy there that said, hey, y'all don't touch Victor. You know what I'm saying? There was a guy, and there were multiple
here from Atlanta.
Yeah.
2 of them from Atlanta.
Yeah.
One was a drug lord in the cab and another one in Fulton.
But I want to hear about there were some really good lessons that you took away from being in there and you saw the perspective. Like, first question is, how many people that you were locked up with were there for violent things versus non-violent things, such as either drug possession or drug sales?
There's a lot of people there from violent stuff. A lot of bank robbers were there.
Really?
One guy shot a cop.
Okay.
Another one killed a cop. And interestingly, I don't understand. I talk to these guys almost every day. I don't know why they wanted to talk to me of all people. There was other people that, hey, I don't want to talk to him. He's a cop. But the one that actually killed the cop, we had a lot of interesting conversations. And why he killed the cop was interesting. That's a whole nother podcast right there.
Sure.
Because it went beyond. It wasn't just a traffic stop. It was something dealing with something completely different. Mm-hmm. But, you got to understand, when I walked in there, it wasn't like it was a warm reception. I was first of all, they sent me all the way out to Arkansas, 1,000 miles away. Mm-hmm. There's a camp right there in Alabama. Most politicians and whatever are sent to camps. I wasn't sent to a camp. We know that was done by design. Then when I get there, I'm put in the most violent housing unit. I write about it in there. If they didn't want you there, They wait till the guards are gone. They beat you. You go to the guard bloody, and you got to check yourself into the shoe. I think the guards thought that I was going to check myself into the shoe, because I write about that in the book. You know, I get called, hey, you scared, you this. Then 3 months later, they don't hear nothing from me. When I say don't hear nothing from me, you got to understand there were no cameras in this area. The only cameras is if a guard walked through his eye, if he walked through. So they pretty much, the inmates ran the asylum there. When people say I saw more drugs in jail than I saw in the streets, they're not lying. Full of drugs. There were 3 drug dealers there in that particular unit dealing drugs. You can't deal drugs without the help of who? The guards. But I think that was part of the reason why they were trying to find a way to get me out and make a quick decision, because like I wrote in the book, one guy came to me and said, hey, I need to talk to you. This is my first day there. We got a lot going on in here, and we really don't want no cops or whatever. And I put in book, frankly, I said, listen, do you really think the people who put me in here are going to warm up to me if I run and tell them whatever you're doing, which I didn't know what he was doing at the time until I found out later. Yeah. And he laughed and he saw it. Well, I think what really saved the day was this. You know, there's a guy that runs upstairs, ATL. He was a drug lord in DeKalb. There was another guy that was a major dealer in Fulton County. You know, one day I get called up to the library and say, hey, somebody needs to see you. Go see him or whatever. Yeah, sure, whatever. I thought somebody just wanted to meet me. And, you know, and it's like, hey, I get to meet the legendary Victor Hill. And we sit and talk for a while. I thought he was just a dude from Atlanta. I really thought he was there for some type of white collar crime. But as it turns out, I didn't realize it. But this is what you call real community policing. Both of them had family that lived in Clayton. They didn't come to Clayton. Guess why they didn't come to Clayton? Yeah. But this is what they said to the other folks. And I find out this later. They say, hey, look, my family lives there. They feel safe because of this guy. He's like Robin Hood. Leave him alone. If he was a bad cop, we would know it. These guys look you up and research your case before you get there. Sure. Right. And even they thought it was some bull. One of the guys that was helping me with the appeal had been in a restraint chair 16 hours. You know, contrary to popular belief, nobody stayed in the chair with me longer than 4 hours. They researched the case and they were like, well, hell, if this is illegal, we should be locking up people here. And they actually became my so you know how I think it's biblical what they meant for my bad and not for my good. They were expecting, they thought I was going to fold and say, because there were some people that came in that unit and say, hey, get, because that's just how bad it was. Filthy, it was nasty, it was violent. There was a lot of beatings and stuff going on, especially with the cartel. They were very interesting. But it turned out not to be the case. And these guys ultimately became my professors, I said, because I thought it was going to be my monastery. I was just going to try and meditate my time the whole time there. But these guys taught me so much. I call them my professors. And that's why I dedicated the book I wrote, which really they wrote, to them. And I was once asked, hey, what do you think you taught those guys? And I had to pause for it. And I was like, I don't know if I taught them anything. They taught me. You know, let me tell you this. It literally is an academy there. I've been to 2 police academies, one in South Carolina, one here in Georgia. So I could say I got to attend the criminal academy. And it's an interesting academy. And there's people there that will teach whatever you want, from the stock market to how to go be a better drug dealer, if that's what you want. Anything you want to learn, there's someone there teaching a class. And if it's not a class that you can go take, there's a group. Yeah. And there were things I saw there that, I mean, like 4-dimensional chess. I've never seen that. I thought they were joking. I saw 4 guys playing chess. You know, chess what? There's 32 pieces. Well, now there's 64 pieces. One guy here, one there. Yeah. And I didn't even know it existed. They taught me how to play that. Yeah. And they took, you know, they took my chess game higher. Let's just put it that way. I don't say I need to go join a tournament tomorrow, but you know what I'm saying?
Would you say the people there that are there for the nonviolent reasons, like, would you say like, man, this is not the place for them? Like, there needs to be some other type of alternative? Or
absolutely. Let me tell you, there was a guy there. I don't want to say mentally retarded. There's a new word for it. I don't know what it was, but that's what he was. He was doing about 12 years because he was a drug mule. Hell, he was a drug mule in there. Right. He's mentally challenged. So anything people tell him to do, he's going to do. And you don't see this type of discretion. Jail was really designed to keep dangerous people away. You know, child molesters, robbers. If these people are loose, someone's going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. But when you start giving folks 15 and 20 years for tax evasion and stuff like that, you're wasting billions of dollars. Now there's ways to confine people to their home. And hell, the people who they defrauded, you could probably get your money back, make them work and take 50% of their income or something. Mm-hmm. But, you know, there's a population there that wasn't violent and they were just trying to survive. And they was just trying to stay themselves and stay out of where all the violence was going on at.
Yeah.
And they didn't necessarily have the connections that I didn't even know I had because I didn't know these guys. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the fact that they honored what I did in Clayton County was pretty amazing.
Speaking of, how difficult is it to kind of get yourself back on your feet? Because they have jobs, right? How much do the jobs pay in federal custody?
Right. I actually tried to get a job when I was there.
Yeah.
And it was a job in a library. I was paying 18 cents an hour. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So if you want to talk about free labor or you want to talk about slavery, there's modern slavery going on there because there's some jobs there where they make furniture and stuff like that. Okay, if these guys are willing to wake up and go to work 8 o'clock every morning and work, I'm not saying we need to pay them $100,000 a year, but I think minimum wage is reasonable. That way they can save some money before they get out. That way perhaps they could support their family. But there's some guys who are getting up and going to work every day. And I think the highest paying job, if I remember correctly, was $1 something an hour. I don't even believe it was $2. I know the job at the library teaching and tutoring was 18 cents an hour.
Mm-hmm. And let me see here. We've been doing this. Woo. We've been going for a minute, man.
Really? Yeah. Hey, you're a fascinating guy. You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this. If there was a grand takeaway from your career in law enforcement and the political roads that you travel down, right? Mm-hmm. Because I mean, you know, I understand your perspective is, I'm not reacting to the political statements that you're making. When you call, when you're taking shots at people, I'm not reacting to that. I'm not reacting to that. Those are your feelings. And
those are the truth.
And you have your. Well, anyway, I understand.
It's the truth.
I understand.
Right.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not going to impede it.
Exactly.
But I guess my question to you is, if there was would you still do things the way that you did? And I don't mean like you would go from the fear, militaristic law enforcement officer to love and hugs and kisses and holding babies, but would you do the political stuff different, or is there a moment in time where you're like, damn, I made that move and that is caused all this political shit to fall on me? Really? Or would you do it the same way? And it's like, it is what it is. I'm being me.
It is what it is. And I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't steal my police car. I didn't violate inmates' rights by putting them in restraint chairs when they're violent and making threats and stuff. And if you look at the other 600 times it was done by other deputies, it's the exact identical thing. Yeah. So there was nothing to do different. And the sad part about it is I really wasn't involved in politics. You never really saw me hanging out with politics because most of them in this county are kind of goofy. There was very few of them that I had relationships with. I just did my job and kept the county safe.
I think the only thing the thing I remember the most is, and I would see you, and we had a friend in common who was an investigator for when I was in the DA's office and a partner of yours in the police department. Yeah. But the thing that I remember that you did is the trunk or treat at the jail. Right. And I would see you there, and I would get a look from you and a feeling like, I know this guy. Like you had a look like I know who this is, even though we never talked. I never spoke to you during my entire tenure at the DA's office. Now I will say this, I had gone to commissioner meetings. I had met other people in positions in the county, and every time I met them, it was like the first time. They had no idea it was me. Right. And so I say all that to say, like, I think it's fair to say, like, you weren't at the political stuff. You had the trunk or treat, and to me, that was like the signature thing from the sheriff's office. Is that right?
Let me tell you that really wasn't a feel-good community thing. Let me tell you why I had Trunk or Treat. It was the only event I had. There were other events going on there, but I can't, because some elected officials, they become event planners. I mean, it seems like all they do is hold an event. I'm holding a concert. I'm holding a such and such giveaway or whatever. First learn how to do your job. Do your job well first. But that was my job. The reason we had Trunk or Treat is because I didn't want kids knocking on strangers' doors. And I didn't want child molesters getting in them. While we had Trunk or Treat and they were under the protective care of law enforcement, I also had a team going out checking to see where all the sex offenders were to make sure they were where they were supposed to be. It was a strategy. It was job related. But,
I didn't even know that.
Exactly. And, when I see politicians get away from their job, like sometimes you see people in one position, well, I want to do something for the school. Now, don't get me wrong. If a school called me and say, hey, let's do career day, that's different. I'm talking about my career. But if you want to deal with kids and you want to do that, well, then go join the school board and become a teacher. You're a cop. Your job is to keep the county safe. If you're concerned about different diseases, and join the health department. That's not our job. Our job is to keep everybody safe. So I believe that what you do should be germane to your job. Now, do I believe in feeding the hungry and giving to the poor? Well, I've done that my whole life. I mean, good cops are going to do that naturally. I mean, I can't tell you, when I was a rookie, a house fire, older cop comes, hey man, they ain't got a place to stay. Let's put something together. But when you go out and make this thing, which is why I don't like the community policing style we have today, where I'm going to go and prove to everybody I'm a good guy, I'm a nice guy. It comes off disingenuous. Well, this group of people like to dance. I'm going to get up and start dancing. Okay. If I'm dancing, how can I protect them? If I'm in a line dance and an active shooter pops up, how am I going to switch from being a line dancer to protecting them? I need to be watching them so they can have a good time. I need to have situational awareness. And it's turned it goofy and it's made law enforcement very ineffective. And probably why they don't have the control and fear, because they've lost the command and control. So I think if you're going to do something, do it germane to your job. That had something to do with public safety. It was more than just which we had a blast with the kids, but it was about keeping the kids safe. The parents and the kids know we're somewhere under protective care of law enforcement. Meanwhile, I got some badasses going around checking to make sure the child molesters are where they're supposed to be. But as far as just holding an event every day, we're having a car show, let's do a vision board, is really mentally retarded. It has nothing to do with being a commissioner. It has nothing to do with being the sheriff or the chief. Do your job first. And if you do your job first, that will impress people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's how you build relationships in the community. If you just do your job, let me tell you something. You don't have to take a video of, see, I changed your tire. If you're riding down the street and you see a woman and her tire is flat, common sense says you need to stop and help her. You're the police. And you think, no, that's what I'm supposed to do. Right. But one day I'm running for re-election. I'm knocking on a door. And I hey, I'm Victor Hill. I want to ask you to vote for me. Oh, what? You don't got to ask me to vote for me. You don't remember me? No. You stopped and helped me change my tire. I did. Okay, great. I didn't stop for a vote. It wasn't a picture moment. That's what I'm supposed to do. Because I got to keep people safe. If there's a woman and I don't stop, who will stop? Because we had a case like that back in the 90s where some people stopped and kidnapped her and raped her. And I was one of the fortunate ones to get to hunt them down. So there you go.
Well, is there anything that you want to leave? I mean, I think we've had a good conversation. I mean, this could go on for hours and hours.
Yeah, I think I got to come back.
Okay.
I get an invite back, and then maybe come on my show too, the Hill of Justice. Because I want to question you on some stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely down.
You're an interesting guy.
That's a fair statement. I mean, I think it goes both ways. Like, I've made my position on you very clear that I am not, there are some things that I think that you did very well, which was being responsive to your bosses, to the people who elected you. I think that you did I think that the reason why you are so controversial is because people have such strong feelings against either for or against you. There's not really a middle ground. I can hold both of the thoughts that I have for you at the same time, in that when you have an elected official and they are responsive to the voters, like, those are qualities that you want in your elected officials. Now, I'm on the opposite side of, when we talk about fear and to an extent prevention, because I think that there is a line there. My regurgitation of what I think you believe is that many things are very black or white. I have,
when it
I
comes
think,
to protection, yeah.
I think I have a lot more gray area than you do.
Absolutely.
And so, you know,
and that doesn't make you a bad guy.
No,
Right.
I'm not saying it's a good thing or
Right.
a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because the world that I don't want for myself and for my kids is a situation where those who sacrifice freedom for safety deserve neither. I think it was Benjamin Franklin, right? You understand? So if I sent my kids to school and there are armed guards there, and there's an armed guard in the classroom, and
Free, they're just protected. You don't take their freedom, but you just make sure that dude that's coming to take their life don't do it.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying. It's just like, what kind of life is like everywhere you go, there has to be an armed guard. Like,
you can thank the
crazy.
prosecutors for that. Like I told you earlier, when they started locking up parents for spanking kids, locking up cops, locking up teachers, and they took all the order, they created this type of world.
There is, I think it goes beyond prosecutors. I'm not saying prosecutors are not
other
at
people,
fault.
but yeah, they were the nucleus or the catalyst, for lack of a better term.
I'm saying that we as parents, uncles, nephews, we as adults collectively can do a better job in reforming the narrative and establishing that authoritative power structure. Like, for example, I was supposed to end this, but here we go.
No, sure.
I tell my friends, like, listen, when you interact with police officers, they are trained to be at a higher level. They're turned up more than you are. So if you get pulled over, you know, they're going to come at you, let's say at a level 2, sir, license and registration. If you're at a level 1, almost always, they're never going to be above a level 2, right?
True.
Now, you coming in, the hell you stopping me for?
Yeah.
You've bumped it up. You're at a level 3.
It's true.
Now they're going to be at a level 4 or a 5. Sir, I'm not telling you. Give me your license and registration. Well, don't you tell me why I'm getting pulled over. It's like this back and forth, right?
Yes.
And my vision of law enforcement is they're always going to be at least 1 to 2 levels over you. So if you're at a 5, they're at a 6 or a 7. If you're at a 9, you're getting your ass whooped. Like, some violence is about to occur, right? And so I'm not saying, now the flip side of that is, if you're at a level 1, I don't believe an officer needs to be at a level 6 or a 7.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, if I ask you, do you mind telling me why I'm being pulled over? I would call that maybe a 1, maybe getting closer to a 2. I don't have to tell you shit. Give me your shit. Mm-hmm. You know? Whoa. That's not necessary. You see what I'm saying? But I have trained my friends, or told them, like, whatever level you are, just understand from that law enforcement officer's perspective, they don't know you. They don't know you you may be wanted, you may not, you may have a gun, you may not. They don't know. And their job is to, in my opinion, be that authority figure and establish control, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue becomes when the people, the general population, officers need to understand, you may be encountering this person on the worst day of their life. Their dog may have died. They may be late for work. Their boss may have just chewed them out. They're speeding because they need to get back to their sick family member. And now you're being an asshole to them. Like, they're an emotional wreck right now. You're going to encounter people who are emotionally in shambles. Understand that when you interact with them, their level 3 or 4 may not be a buck against your authority. Mm-hmm. It may be because their life is fucked up right now. And now you're making it worse for them. Like, you're piling on to these pre-existing conditions.
For the first time. Amen. You and I agree on all of that.
You know,
but we'll get back to the fear and the garden stuff later.
Yeah. But anyway, all right. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Man.
First,
it's a pleasure, man. I feel like I'm with the celebrity, actually. I love those commercials, man.
No, man.
Absolutely.
Cool.
All right. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.